Arsenal should sign Jorrel Hato, and in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to explain to you why that is my opinion at the very least, and I will be keen to hear your opinions on it in the comments down below, so please do get those in. And before we start, if I could ask you to subscribe, we're on the way now to 20,000 subscribers. The support's been incredible, and if you could like the video as well, I would be massively grateful. But look, let's get straight into it. Why are we talking about Jorrel Hato? Well, this came out yesterday from Gianluigi Longari. Developments are expected in the future of Jorrel Hato after the contacts in recent days with Arsenal. The player's agent has been back in London in the last few hours. Now, it's believed that it's not just Arsenal that are in the running for Jorrel Hato. It's also Chelsea, which would explain his agent being in London. But Arsenal have held a long-term interest in Jorrel Hato. Fabrizio Romano's mentioned it earlier in this transfer window, but even dating back to last summer, he had said this: Arsenal keep monitoring Ajax young centre-back Jorrel Hato as one of the best talents in Europe in his position. He's already been scouted for months, and Arsenal keep following him. And it actually went back further than that. I mean, we'd been speaking about him at around the same time we'd been signing Jordi and Timber. Off the back of signing Timber, Hato then started coming up in conversations. It was the following January 2024, that we were potentially going to try and sign him, but I don't think we had enough money to spend at that point. It was a January where we didn't spend a penny. And unfortunately, he actually went on and signed a new contract with Ajax, which probably increased his value because at that point, he only had 18 months left. But the fact is, Jorrel Hato has been on Arsenal's radar for a long time. The next question, I suppose, is do we need a defender? I think that's the first question people have. It's one of those, another defensive signing when we know that we need to do work in other positions. But there is an argument that we probably do. Now, if you look at the current group of defenders that we have, 9 of those players, you would say that's enough. We don't, we've got 9 of them. We can cope with that. Generally speaking, in a Premier League game where everyone is fit, Mikel Arteta has 2 defenders on the bench. And if you've got 9 of them, 4 starting, 2 on the bench, that leaves you with 3 that perhaps wouldn't make it into the squad. But actually, if we go into it a little bit further, Zinchenko we're looking to sell. Tomiyasu you simply cannot rely on. And Miles Lewis-Skelly, whilst he has played at left back a lot for us, is he a defender? Like, is that the long-term plan for him? And I was looking at this today from Gunnerblog. Should Thomas Partey leave, which it is seeming more and more likely that he will, Arsenal will need to find a replacement. However, they might not have the financial means to bring in someone at the same level. The matter remains unresolved for now, and the club is weighing up several possible options, with a Goumet among them. But if we were to not sign a replacement for Thomas Partey, what would that leave us with? Not many options. This is the current group of midfielders that we've got. Now, bring in Martin Zubimendi, fair enough. But actually, Thomas Partey goes. Sambi Lokonga's probably not going to come back. Fabio Vieira is probably not going to stay. Obviously, Rosiak is a youth player. And so I think Miles Lewis-Skelly really needs to be included in the group of midfielders. And if that is the case, then there is certainly reason to believe that we need to bring in another defender. Because if we go back to this, Ben White, Gabriel Saliba, Timber, Calafiori-Kiwior, that's not a huge crop of players. Now, of course, you've still got Lewis-Skelly. He can still play at left back if you need him to. But I just feel like if Partey goes, we certainly need another defender. And we know that as well, based on what we've already tried to do this summer. Arsenal made a significant effort to lure Dean Huijsen from Bournemouth, but ultimately he chose Real Madrid. And if we do enter the market, one man high on the list was Mark Guéhi. Now, interestingly, the difference with those two is that they are central centre-backs. Guéhi's right-footed, Huijsen's kind of both-footed. But that was slightly different to Hato. That was to cover both right centre-back and left centre-back. And if you do look at this group, and I've taken the question mark off Miles Lewis-Skelly because he is still a player that can play at left-back, you could argue, and I think this would be probably the biggest argument against Jorrel Hato in particular, you could argue that a left-footed left-back / left centre-back is not the biggest priority of a defender, because you've got White, Timber, Saliba as that kind of right-sided cluster, but you've got Gabriel, Calafiori, Kiwior, and Miles Lewis-Skelly that can all play off the left. So to add another lefty maybe isn't as important. Of course, Jakub Kiwior, I'm assuming, is going to stay, but he is another player that could go. But outside of that, why Jorrel Hato? Why do I think he would be an excellent addition to our squad? Well, look, he is 19 years old, turned 19 in March. He is 6 foot tall, and he has a wealth of experience for a player his age. He's predominantly played at left back in the past season, having played at left centre back for a lot of his career. And you can see some of those numbers in his career as well. 4 goals and 8 assists when playing as a left back. 12 goal contributions in 88 games from left back is really strong. And I think that is something that we do perhaps need to add at left back. But of course, he's got that versatility to play at left centre back as well. You look at the minutes that he put up last season. This was last season as an 18/19-year-old. Over 4,000 minutes for Ajax last season. 31 starts in the Eredivisie, 11 in the Europa League. That is incredible for someone his age. And that's the second season that he's done that. You know, you saw from the previous slide, he's played over 150 games of senior football already. It's quite remarkable. He's worn the captain's armband for Ajax. I mean, imagine trusting an 18-year-old to go out there with the captain's armband on. And so this is a guy who at 19 years old is really, really well developed already. He's a leader, and I think that is useful. You then look at who he actually is as a player, and there are naturally a huge amount of comparisons between him and Jurrien Timber, of course, from the same club, the same nation, both sorts of centre-backs that can play at full-back. But actually, in some ways, he reminds me a little more of Ben White. Clearly, he is a centre-back, right? But he's only 6 foot, so he's not like a huge centre-back. He's quick. He's an incredibly powerful runner. And he is far more willing to get forward, I would say, than Jurrien Timber. I'd argue at times this season, it was probably my biggest criticism of Timber at right-back, was his inability to overlap or his lack of will to overlap as much as Ben White. And actually, Ben White was in a similar boat in 22-23. You know, if we look back to the first season where Ben White was predominantly playing at right back, it took him a while to develop that side of his game. Jorrel Hato has that, and he absolutely has the skill set. Like I said, the running power, his ability to carry the ball long distances, dribbles with it well. He's more than happy to run into midfield with it. But as you can see here, he's more than happy to make those sorts of runs in behind as an attacking fullback as well. And actually, the result of this particular attack, he plays this ball on the volley as a cross and gets the assist. It ends up in the back of the net. It's really, really well worked. Again, from another angle, he can put a really good delivery in. There are quite a few clips. And actually, this whole compilation that I was watching, I'll link it in the Discord. You can probably find it on Twitter. I'll link it in the Discord. Discord is down below. Loads of people in there now, so lots of conversations always going on about Arsenal. Feel free to join it, but I will link it down there so you can watch the whole thing. It's about 2.5 minutes of him as an attacking fullback. Delivery is really good. I actually think the one thing that he could improve on is just being more confident with it, especially those overlapping runs. But it does. It reminds me far more of Ben White, the long, rangy strides, getting around the outside of his winger. And I think that's something we need down the left. I don't think Miles Lewis-Skelly's particularly comfortable doing it. He's much more comfortable moving into midfield, of course, because he is naturally a midfielder. With Ricardo Calafiori, he is comfortable doing it, but he's also comfortable running into midfield, running across to the other side of the pitch, running through the centre as a strike. Like, Ricardo Calafiori is a different breed. But I like Hato. I really do like Hato. And I feel like this sets our defence up for a long, long time. You can actually see for yourself how Hato plays. He's in the under-21s Euros with the Netherlands, and he will be playing against England tomorrow evening, 5 p.m. So if you want to do a bit of Jorrel Hato watching yourself, a bit of scouting, we may well even see Ethan Nwaneri up against Jorrel Hato in that game tomorrow. I do think for the under-21s for the Netherlands, he plays as a left centre-back rather than a left-back. So slightly different to what I imagine he would do at Arsenal. But I think the depth that you've then got, you can afford at that point to move Jakub Kiwior on. And I do think that's something that if it doesn't happen this summer, it will happen eventually. And you're bringing in, like I said, a 19-year-old with the versatility to play at left centre-back and at left-back. You've got additional cover if Riccardo Calafiori continues to have the injury problems we saw from him last season. I just don't see where you could go wrong. And it looks like he's perhaps going to be between 40 and 50 million. And I do understand that is a major outlay in a position that isn't crucial. Like, he is not a vital player for what we're trying to do right now. And absolutely, we should not spend money on him and then turn around and say we can't afford Rodrigo, right? This should be an addition to the business we have to do. The business being the striker, the left winger, and arguably the right winger. But if we do have the budget for it, I really think we do it. And I would be genuinely gutted if he ends up at Chelsea. If he ends up at Chelsea, he's better than Levi Colwill as a left centre-back, and he'd probably replace Cucurella as a left-back. He really would. Defensively, he's really, really strong. In 1v1 duels, of course, he's got the pace to keep up with players. He's strong physically. Like, he's just got a bit of it all. And in that sense, defensively, he is more like Jurriën Timber. It's just offensively, I think he's more like Ben White. And of course, we're making comparisons to players that we've already got. He is Jorrel Hato in his own right. And I would love to see him at Arsenal. So there we go. That is going to be the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if I have swayed you, if you are not a fan of Jorrel Hato anyway. And like I said, please do subscribe. We'll be back tomorrow either with another video or a live stream, depending on what is happening in terms of Arsenal news. Of course, we're still waiting for some sort of breakthrough when it comes to Victor Gyökeres and Benjamin Sesko. But other than that, like the video as well. Have a fantastic evening, fantastic rest of the day, wherever you are. And I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, goodbye.